The iPhone 20 could be the iPhone that finally makes your current phone look old, not because Apple adds another camera, another small battery improvement, or a slightly faster processor. The real change is much bigger. Apple is reportedly preparing its most dramatic iPhone redesign since the iPhone X, with a glass-centric body, a display that curves around all four edges, potentially hidden Face ID, new solid-state controls, a next-generation 2-nanometer chip, and battery technology designed to deliver much more capacity without making the phone thicker. And if even most of these plans survive Apple's testing, there is one buying decision you need to think about right now. Do you really want to upgrade before 2027? Let's start with the part you'll notice immediately. The iPhone 20 is reportedly being developed as a glass-heavy device with the front and rear glass wrapping into the sides, while a metal structure remains in the middle for strength. The internal model numbers being reported are V73 and V74, and the overall goal appears to be very different from today's flat-edged iPhones. Think about the iPhone X. Apple removed the home button, introduced Face ID, and pushed the display much closer to the edges. That design became the foundation for almost every iPhone that followed. The iPhone 20 could be Apple's next reset. But here's where things get interesting. The display may not simply have smaller bezels. Apple is reportedly exploring a four-sided, curved panel designed to make the border almost disappear from normal viewing. Ice Universe has described a concept involving extremely subtle curvature, optical refraction, and light-guiding structures. In other words, Apple may not need an aggressively curved screen. Instead, it could use the glass and the display together to create the illusion that the screen reaches all the way to the edge. That matters because Apple's previous attempts at curved displays would have created obvious problems: distortion, accidental touches, poor viewing angles, and potentially expensive repairs. The rumored approach sounds more controlled. The screen would remain relatively natural to use while the edges visually disappear. And Apple could potentially market this as something like a liquid glass display. But the screen itself isn't the most difficult part. The real engineering challenge is what happens above it. Apple has reportedly been working toward putting Face ID components under the display. Eventually, the front camera could move there too. If Apple pulls this off, the dynamic island could finally disappear. No large cutout, no obvious notch, just screen. That would be a huge visual upgrade, but I would not treat this as guaranteed. Display analyst Ross Young has previously pushed back on the idea that Apple will have completely hidden Face ID ready in time. And that's important because Apple has been working on under-display technology for years. This is one of those features where the difference between a prototype and a mass-produced iPhone is enormous. So the iPhone 20 could launch with a completely uninterrupted display, or Apple could compromise with a tiny camera hole, and that single detail could determine whether this feels like a genuine iPhone X level redesign or simply another refinement. Now let's talk about the controls. Apple may finally be ready to kill the physical buttons. The idea isn't new. Apple previously worked on a project reportedly known as Project Bongo, designed to replace mechanical buttons with solid-state controls. That project was reportedly canceled because of technical problems, but the concept may be back. Current rumors suggest the iPhone 20 could replace the side button, volume controls, action button, and camera control with pressure-sensitive surfaces combined with haptic feedback. So when you press the side of the phone, the button wouldn't physically move. Instead, the phone would create a vibration that makes your finger feel like it actually clicked something. And this isn't just about style. Fewer moving parts could potentially improve durability. It could also allow Apple to detect different levels of pressure. A light press could perform one action, a harder press could trigger another. That could eventually make the side of the iPhone more intelligent than a traditional button. But there's a catch. Apple already tried this once, and it failed to make it into production. So this is exactly the kind of feature I would put in the high-risk rumor category. Now let's move inside the phone. The iPhone 20 is expected to move to Apple's next generation, A21 silicon, reportedly based on a second-generation 2-nanometer manufacturing process. If Apple's roadmap stays on track, this could be a major efficiency upgrade over the A20 generation expected before it. But raw performance isn't the biggest story. AI is. Apple is reportedly evaluating high-bandwidth memory technology that could give the processor much faster access to data. Why does that matter? Because Apple Intelligence is moving toward increasingly demanding on-device processing. The more AI Apple wants to run locally, the more important memory bandwidth becomes. That means the iPhone 20 could be designed less around traditional benchmark numbers and more around sustained AI performance. For creators, professionals, and power users, that could matter much more than another 10 or 15% CPU improvement. And then we reach the battery. This is where the rumors become especially interesting. Apple is reportedly exploring silicon anode battery technology. Silicon can store more lithium ions than conventional graphite-based anodes, which creates the potential for higher energy density. In simple terms, Apple could potentially put more battery capacity into roughly the same physical space. Some reports have mentioned a battery around 6,000 mAh, but I would treat that number cautiously. There is not enough high-quality evidence yet to call 6,000 mAh a confirmed specification. The bigger story is the technology itself. If Apple can increase energy density without increasing thickness, that's exactly what a future ultra-thin iPhone needs. Because there's a major contradiction happening here, Apple reportedly wants a much thinner, more elegant device, but it also wants more battery life, more AI, more performance, better cameras, and more thermal headroom. Those things normally fight against each other. Silicon anode batteries could help solve one part of that equation. Thermal management is another. The A21 could be extremely powerful, but putting powerful silicon inside a thin, glass-heavy chassis creates a heat problem. Apple has already introduced vapor chamber cooling into its Pro iPhones, and reports suggest the company is planning more advanced thermal hardware for future designs. That makes sense, because the real test isn't whether the iPhone 20 can hit a huge benchmark number for 30 seconds. It's whether it can maintain that performance during gaming, video editing, AI processing, and other heavy workloads. That's the difference between a specification upgrade and a real-world performance upgrade. Now we have to talk about the cameras. A 200-megapixel main sensor has been rumored for the distant future, but this is one specification I would not put in the same confidence category as the Glass Redesign or A21. There simply isn't enough corroboration yet. The more believable camera story is Apple's continued focus on computational photography, stabilization, and sensor improvements. One rumor suggests the ultra-wide could eventually gain dedicated optical stabilization. If that happens, the benefit would be much easier to understand than a giant megapixel number. Smoother handheld video, cleaner low-light shots, more stable macro footage, and better results when you're moving. That's what actually matters, because a 200 megapixel label sounds impressive. But if your everyday photos, video, and zoom don't improve, the number doesn't mean much. And this is where the iPhone 20 becomes interesting from a buying perspective. Imagine you're buying an iPhone 18 Pro in 2026. You get a powerful new chip, a great camera system, a mature design, excellent battery life, and a premium experience. There would be nothing wrong with buying it. But then 2027 arrives, and Apple potentially introduces an entirely new physical design, a nearly bezel-free display, hidden biometric hardware, new controls, new battery technology, a new chip architecture, and a design language that could last for several generations. Suddenly, the iPhone 18 Pro doesn't look bad, it just doesn't look like the beginning of Apple's next era. That's a very important distinction, because if you upgrade every year, the iPhone 20 probably isn't automatically a smart investment. You'll spend more money to get technology that will eventually become standard. But if you're someone who keeps an iPhone for 3, 4, or even 5 years, the calculation changes. Waiting could potentially give you much higher long-term value. You could skip an incremental generation and move directly into the next major design cycle. And there is another reason to wait. Apple's first generation of any radical design is also the one I would be most cautious about. A wraparound glass design could be harder to repair. Solid-state buttons could feel different. Under-display cameras could still have image quality compromises, and an ultra-thin body could create trade-offs in durability or thermals. So the iPhone 20 could be Apple's most exciting iPhone in years and still have weaknesses. That's why I'm not recommending that everyone blindly wait. If your current phone is failing, buy what you need. If you're a professional who needs better cameras or performance right now, don't sacrifice productivity for a rumor. But if your current iPhone is still working well, and you're considering a premium upgrade mainly because you want something that feels genuinely new, this is where I would slow down. Because the biggest upgrade may not be the A21, it may not be the camera, it may not even be the battery. It could be the fact that Apple is reportedly preparing to change what an iPhone physically looks and feels like. Just like the iPhone X did in 2017, the name is still uncertain. Apple could call it iPhone 20. It could use iPhone XX. Or Apple could choose something completely different. The exact display sizes are also still unsettled, with reports ranging from roughly 6.4 inches to almost 7 inches for the larger model. And several of the most exciting specifications remain unconfirmed. So don't buy into every leak, but look at the pattern. Glass redesign. V73 and V74 development models. Quad curved display research. Under-display Face ID work. Potential under-display camera technology. Solid-state buttons. Duimi A21 silicon. Higher bandwidth memory. Silicon anode battery research. And increasingly sophisticated thermal management. When independent reports keep pointing toward the same direction, that's when a rumor becomes worth watching. My verdict? If you already own a recent high-end iPhone, wait. Don't upgrade simply for a slightly faster chip or another camera improvement. If the iPhone 20 launches with even 60 or 70% of the features currently being discussed, it could offer substantially more upgrade value than a normal yearly refresh. If you're buying a phone right now, however, don't wait 18 months just because of rumors. Buy based on what you need today. But for anyone planning a major premium iPhone purchase in 2027, the advice is simple. Keep your current phone a little longer. Because the iPhone 20 isn't shaping up to be just another number in Apple's lineup. It could be the beginning of the next decade of iPhone design. And if Apple manages to pull off the screen, battery, AI performance, and controls at the same time, this could be one of those rare iPhones where waiting actually becomes the smarter investment.